Why can your first $1,000 feel harder than your first $100? Sounds impossible, right? But when you're starting from almost nothing, a single $300 emergency can wipe out months of progress. Meanwhile, someone with $100,000 can lose $1,000 to an unexpected expense and barely slow down. Same money, completely different game. And once you understand why, saving your first $1,000 becomes a completely different game. Think about it. If you're sitting at $214 right now, you're probably looking at that number thinking, how am I ever supposed to get to $1,000? And meanwhile, someone with $50,000 saved can have a $500 emergency and barely notice it. Same $500, completely different experience. So what actually changes? Why does the first $1,000 feel so painfully slow? And why can the next few thousand sometimes come much faster? That's what we're going to break down. Let's start with something nobody likes talking about. When you have no financial cushion, every unexpected expense attacks your progress. You save $50, then your phone breaks. You save another $100, then your car needs a repair. You finally reach $400, then your rent goes up. And suddenly $400 becomes $0. So you start again. Save, spend, save, spend. And after a while you start thinking, maybe I'm just terrible with money. But that's not necessarily what's happening. You're trying to build a financial cushion while having nothing underneath the cushion. Now imagine someone who already has $50,000 saved. Their car needs a $500 repair. It's annoying, but it doesn't destroy your financial plan. They don't have to put it on a credit card and hope nothing else goes wrong. They don't have to sell something. They don't have to wait until payday. They pay the bill and keep going. That's the difference. When you're starting from zero, one problem can erase your progress. When you've built a cushion, problems become expenses instead of emergencies. And that's why your first $1,000 is so important. It's not because $1,000 is some magical number. It's because $1,000 gives you breathing room. And something else changes, your decisions. When you have nothing saved, financial decisions often become emergency decisions. You don't ask, what's the smartest option? You ask, what's the option I can afford today? That's a huge difference. But once you have a cushion, you can pause. You can compare prices. You can wait. You can say no. You can handle a surprise bill without immediately reaching for a credit card. So your first $1,000 isn't just a number sitting in an account. It's a buffer between you and panic. And that's why it can be worth far more psychologically than the number suggests. So how do you actually get there? Forget the idea that you need some perfect budget. Start with 4 simple moves. Number 1, give the money a job. Don't call it extra savings. Call it your emergency buffer. The purpose is simple. This money protects me when something goes wrong. That's easier to defend than a vague goal like I should save more. Number 2, separate it. Put it in a separate savings account, not your everyday spending account. Because if your emergency money sits right next to your spending money, it becomes incredibly easy to think, I can borrow $50 from it, and then another $50, and another. Suddenly, your emergency fund is gone. Make the money slightly harder to touch. Not impossible, just inconvenient. Number 3, automate a tiny amount. Don't start with some ridiculous goal that makes you miserable. Try $5 a day. That's $35 a week. At that pace, you're building the habit while moving toward the goal. And if you can save more, great. But the first objective isn't to become perfect, it's to become consistent. Because $5 that happens every day beats $200 that you promise yourself you'll save next month. And number 4, don't only cut, try to earn. This is where beginners often get stuck. They spend hours trying to save $10 on groceries, while ignoring the possibility of making an extra $100. Sell things you don't use. Take an extra shift if that's available to you. Freelance. Learn a useful skill. Do whatever legitimately fits your situation. When you're starting from zero, even a small increase in income can make a huge difference. And then something interesting happens. You hit $1,000. Nothing explodes. You don't suddenly become rich. But the next emergency doesn't necessarily send you all the way back to zero. That's the turning point. Maybe your car needs $300. You pay it. Now you have $700 left. You don't love it, but you're still in the game. And then you rebuild. $700, $800, $900, $1,000. You didn't start over from nothing. You started from a foundation. That's the part people underestimate. And eventually the numbers get bigger. Your first $1,000 becomes $5,000, then $10,000, then perhaps $20,000. And once you have a meaningful emergency fund, you can start thinking about longer-term goals and investing instead of constantly fighting the next emergency. That's where the money can begin to compound. Not because you're suddenly smarter, not because you discovered some secret investment, but because your progress isn't constantly being reset. The first stage is about survival. The next stage is about stability, and eventually you can start thinking about growth. So if you're sitting at $214 right now, or $40, or even $0, don't look at someone with $100,000 and think, "I'll never get there." You're comparing two completely different stages of the journey. Right now, your job isn't to become rich. Your job is to build your first little wall between yourself and financial emergencies. Get to $100, then $250, then $500, then $1,000. Don't underestimate small numbers when you're building your foundation, because $1,000 doesn't make you wealthy, but it can change what happens the next time life tries to knock you backward. And I'm curious, how much do you have saved right now? $0, $100, $1,000, $10,000? You don't have to be embarrassed by the number. Put it in the comments. Because sometimes the first step isn't saving the money, it's finally admitting where you are and deciding you're going somewhere else.